Fook. Fook we've, gone through as well, but probably not in the last few sessions. So let's face the mirror, see it from the back. Gung we ran through, but what are some of the important things? I did this with some of the kids' classes, but just going back to some of the fundamentals that we have in the form, so that we understand it's not just learning the sequence. And I mentioned with the youth that it just houses a bunch of postures, and we have to define these postures. Some of these forms have hundreds of postures. Some of these postures, some of us will never use simply because it's more for a show. Maybe they are much harder to use, but to set up a scenario where those movements actually work, probably not as realistic. So that's why doing some of the forms is a little, what we would call more abstract than practical. But what's practical is our blocks, right? So we do a dragon claw when we're like that. The important thing is the final position. The effectiveness of the movement is the final position, but then the transition, which is something we talked about with the intermediates and youth, that when you intercept the arm and you finalize the position, that's what your target position is. That's the dragon claw, right? When we grab an arm like this, you don't just grab the arm, you actually have to intercept it and then change your position so you can grab the arm. So if you're like this, 1, 2, the two sides of your body have to adapt and accommodate that motion. Because if you're just so stiff that the hand goes like this, it doesn't work. A lot of it, when you learn how to use your movements, some of the work should be done in your own practice to visualize a movement and realize what that movement is actually doing. Because if the only way you can learn, if a teacher comes up to you and points out every little thing, that's pure memory. You're working off of memory. It's not working off experience and working off of the discovery of what you've learned. Because when you discover something and you learn from that discovery, or you learn from your own experience interpreting that movement, then that movement becomes much more in your psychological storage and a lot more in your learning experience. So while we talk about how this movement should be like this, how this movement should be like this, you don't experience anything till you actually feel it, find the position, and see which one actually works. Because that's really why people have so much trouble applying the traditional forms, because they don't really understand what really goes on, other than, well, you're grabbing this arm and you're punching or you're doing that. Most of it happens from how you adapt. So when you adapt in a position, say like a bick, this is a bick, right? But sometimes when people do this move, they go like this, because they don't really know what they're actually doing. It looks kind of the same, but actually when you cover like this and you bick, the bick is a movement from here. So your body has to be part of that movement. That's a bick. When you adjust and you go from here to here, that's a covering hand. The covering hand is not this, it's this. And you turn. So whether you turn into black tiger or bick again. So the bick and cover hand go hand in hand. In other words, if you bick, you're going to cover. You bick and cover, or cover and bick. Those two movements go hand in hand. So when you practice your form, if it's Gung Kun, you're covering hand, bick, allow, right? You can allow from here, or cover again and bick again, cover again and bick again. So you have these in your form, but in what format are you going to take it out and train with it? So if you're in this position, cover, bick, cover, black tiger, those movements go together. And why do these positions make a difference? Because you're learning the final position. So if you capture something here and you follow up with a bick, this is your position. You have to find that position before you make your next transition. So a transition, I mentioned earlier that transitions without void, that's sort of the hardest part for you to imagine and visualize if your body doesn't adapt to it. So as you progress and you advance, it's not the sequential part of it. People think, well, I can do that whole, I know that form inside out, backwards and forwards, but do you know what the movements really represent, right? Do you know how to interpret that movement? Do you know how to use the strength in that movement? If you're using too much strength at the wrong time, the movement is ineffective. If you're using too little strength at the wrong time, it's ineffective. So you have to find a balance between strength and no strength. So that's kind of part of the discovery. You know, when we bring our hands up and we bring it up to here and we press out like this and we sink the elbow and we close the fist and we pull and straighten the body and we open the body to create the next movement. Do we know why the body is doing this? How to generate the strength? How to sink and then expand as you press and push? Is your body responding to those motions? You just can't go ahead and do this. Your body is just rigid and stiff. Nothing works as well when your body is rigid and stiff. If I go like this and I'm like this, it doesn't have the body imagery. It doesn't have the power from the leg and the position. When you like this and you cover, that's just part of that movement. This has to set up. This has to set up. Then you pick. You can't just go cover, then this hand sets up. It's broken. So broken movement is the way it is because you're learning one side and one side separately. As you progress, you have to build the integration of your movement. So the integration of the body is coordination. When the hands move, you have different positions that you have to go through. So when you learn those in your form, here is that block. It's to the 45-degree corner. Here is one position, here is one position. When we go like this position and this position is important because if the technique comes to you here and you cover and you strike, this is where you're striking. You're not overreaching like this, it's here. So sometimes when you look at the Lamb family forms, you look at why the movements are more compact and more direct. We don't have all this, all this fancy stuff that people do in their forms because that's really for performance. It's a performance skill. The traditional arts work off of more directness and moving. I think in the last class we talked about how when we move like this. Why don't we strike and then make a bunch of circles and then punch? Because that's a waste of motion. Because when you strike out like this and you move like this and you move like this, everything is happening one after another. Because that's the way it works. When you're like this and you block and you turn, your body has to adapt. So when the hand comes like this and you sink and you lift and you open, why does it go to these different positions? Because those are the positions you learn from your form sequences or the posturing. And then when you go from this posture to the next posture, you have to define the direction of the movement and the pattern of that movement. So the pattern of those movements, follow this space, follow this space. So really, you only have to work from here to there. That's all. 45-degree here, 45-degree here, and your center line. Everything else really works around that 90-degree angle position. Because if I'm here, and I turn like this, and I turn like this, that's the direction I'm headed in. There's no movement that you actually will be going backwards to strike, because you can't actually use your body mechanics in that way. Everything happens here. So your center line is here, your 45-degree corner is there. So if my center line is here, and I turn, there's my corner. I turn, there's my corner. If I'm using this, if I turn here, it's this. If I turn here, it's this. So that's why it's so important when we start and we learn this movement and this movement, where the body is, and then when you step, how you fall, how this and the legs come together. They come together because that's how the technique will actually work. If someone grabs your wrist and you turn, That's how you get out of the technique. So because we can't have a partner working, I can't demonstrate that. But you have to visualize. So visualization is imagining the movement. If something comes here, like this movement like this, it comes here, you intercept like this. And it's a back fist, but you're using it like this, and you're using it like this. So when we're here, so like in Gung Kun, 1, 2, 3. You might go 1, grab, 2. That's the technique, right? So understanding why this has to be here and not over here or over here. It's because when you intercept the movement, it's in this pathway of movement. It's in this pathway of movement. You see, if I'm here, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can imagine something comes here. 1, 2, cover, right? Down, set up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So where's the power come from? 1, 2. Your body has to create the movement so you can create power. The back, the forward lunge, and the action between here and there. This is the imagery of your movement. It has the transition, has the imagery, it has the structure. So that's a 3-star continuous strike, right? In Gung Kun, I think last time Fook we talked about the back fist, quachu, right? This is like quachu. You sit back, lift up, sink down, lift. When you're here, 1, 2. So your body has to be working together to get that lift. Last time we talked about the sweep, why this hand and this foot has to go together, why this foot has to be stable. So when you turn in and out, or you're here, 1, your foot's here, sweep, and then go backwards. So that's direction. You learn this in Gung Kun when you pull the foot back. You learn this as a sweep. In sweeping, you never do this, or you never do this, because you don't have the connection to the ground, and also equal opposite. See, so here, equal. 1, 2. So 1, this goes this way, this goes this way. So you get your body moving, building that coordination from body form. Body form's imagery. So a lot of times when you watch, you see a movement. And then if you're a teacher, this is part of your job as an instructor is to give the student the best imagery and association with that movement. And then on the other side of it, you show your best, but you don't always just work on that side of it. You have to teach the student what, or how to get to that point where they can learn that movement. So they don't really care how great you look. They really care about how are you going to make me look like that. So you have to understand that it's in the footwork. You take your movement. So where is this? This is a combination. 1, this is butterfly. But then when you do it like this, 1, right? 2, 2. So you have to take the movement and practice it over and over again, and then you have to see where this goes and where this goes. So sometimes you have to work your hands separately from the legs. So you're not focusing on the power, you're focusing on the motion. When we're here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. That's kind of a breakdown. When you qua 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So that's the motion, that's the pattern. But when you intercept here, and you change to here, and you change to here, change to here, change it. How does your skeleton, your body form adapt to what's actually there? Because when something comes here and you interpret and adapt, your positions have to be moving as if it was really happening in your space. That's what the next level of experience is beyond the sequential form. You have to build the sensitivity more. When you go like this, and you go like this, and you go like this, you know exactly where the hand is going to go. If I'm here, and I go like this, and I'm here, this is like this is like this. 1, 2. When we practice the form 1, 2, we're not really hitting two different people. We're training our transition. If I'm here, it's the same as 1, 2, 3. Or maybe you're here. When you cover and you strike, this is why your hand is in this position. When you cover and pull, that's why this hand is in this position. This one is like this. This one is like this. Okay, so what is it? It's really positions that you will learn in your form. In the Muay Thai, when you're like this, right? So there's the hook here. In Fu Hawk, we're like this. Right? So the elbow position, your body position, and your position makes a difference. How the action is. This is the liveliness in your body. This is the agility of footwork. When you move on your feet, it has to be a certain way. So if your hands and legs are going to coordinate, you have to build that in. So that's just some insight about when you do your forms, you know, why everyone looks a little bit different, because everyone's level of motor skill is different. Everyone's wired, but not everyone really can trigger or actually activate those trigger points that make those things happen. Okay, now thrust. Okay, in say the fourth form, we turn. When we stomp, take that step, our hands are like this, it goes up. Okay, don't do this. You have to go from here. Okay, so that goes back to the concept I mentioned about this. You don't want to move isolated and separate. So when you're here, 1, 2, it just comes up. Boom. Then you turn. Then you from here. Okay, so when here, 1. So your body has to respond to the action. It can't be, that's just disarm. When you're here, then your body is engaged as if you're tying it together. That's the two sides working together. And then once the two sides work together, so do your legs. Your legs have to become, your whole body becomes one unit. And that one unit doesn't mean that it's working simultaneously as one thing. It's actually cycling. When I'm here and I open, this is actually coming back here. But also my legs are starting to move. Because why I'm moving? Because when I get to here, I'm already loaded up to do this. When I'm here, I'm ready to do this. Then when I step to here, when I'm here, I'm already set up. This is your interim position before you go up. When you go like this, when you go like this. So all of this has to become part of the timing you're trying to build. So essentially what we're trying to do is build timing, integration of body, and sort of that balance between the physical transition and the softness of that action. Okay, so that's really what we mean by balance. Because the idea of yin and yang is in all our movements. If it's always rigid and stiff, it's going to be slow and awkward. It's not until it becomes the balance between the soft and hard that you develop agility and speed. So that's kind of, how we have to look at it. So if that's helpful, you begin to realize you capture that imagery when you're doing your form. So when you're doing your form, it's like you're on stage presenting what you think the movements are supposed to do. Otherwise, you're mimicking and copying. The mimicking level is the level when you first learn and you copy what you think you saw. But the idea of all of this is that what you saw isn't really very skillful because you don't know what you really saw. Now that's kind of something that's a little hard to understand in the beginning, but even as you progress, you say, well, I know what that movement is, but you know what it is relative to a sequential type action. You really don't know what that movement is feeling like on a turn, because otherwise you would be able to do it right away. So just say, strike down, back fist. When you take your step back and you find your stance, you have to tie your stance together and push. So when you step back, you have to shift, you have to open, you have to sink your elbow, and then you have to push. You see, when you adjust and then palm, this movement should be like this. It's like you're turning to capture the arm before you do the side kick. So you're here, 1, 2, and then you're going to do your side kick. So this part of the movement is critical. How you turn. How you turn. So when you're here, palm, that position is what you're learning. And that's how it should be. It's not just because this doesn't work. You have to do this. You have to turn the hand and create that hand position. So that's that. So this movement all happens as part of the next phase of blocking, because we learned how to block like this, right? 1, 2, 3. This is one, that's the next, just like a dragon claw. With here, then your next part is the pull down. So understanding the next action after that. When I go like this, I back fist, and then I turn. This hand has to drop back down when this hand comes. And then this hand has to come around. So there's a synchronization of the hands that comes from your circles. So when you do this in Fu Hawk, it's not just your body is moving as if it's moving here. So when you do this, no matter how you do it, the body will respond. When you go like this, your body becomes part of this movement. So your body has to be quite nimble. The agility of the body form, because that's the body method, the Sin Fat. The Sin Fat is very important. You have Bu Fat, Sin Fat, Siu Fat. 3 methods. Those 3 methods have to tie together. Everybody learns the hand, sort of the hand technique, but not the hand method. Your hand, you know it's a punch, you know it's a back fist. You know the legs, it's a hands, a horse stance. Offset horse stance, leaning stance. But the method, how do you step in and out of the stance? How do you transition? That's the method. Okay, so there's the Bu Fat, the stepping method behind the physical stance. Then the hardest part, legs are pretty difficult to develop. The Sin Fat is even more difficult. So some people never develop the body form. So they don't develop the body form. You compromise your really level of understanding and the level of expression. So, learning to tie all of these things together to get the total look is what's important. So that the total look its aesthetics doesn't have to be really flashy. It just has to be compatible with your movement. So a lot of times, even here, you have to have a dimension of movement. Why? Why? The timing and your finishing position. When you shift your weight and I turn, right? If you turn without getting strength in your leg, this is your root. Okay. When you have this movement, then you can actually use this leg. Because when you take someone down, or you sweep someone, without the strength and the stability here, it doesn't work. So what do? You're building your back strength, the yo bu, yo let, right? Yo strength, the back strength. So that's what we're using, the back strength. The back strength. The rooted leg. The settling in the stance. So you have to be in the stance, not just bend the knee. How do you get into your stance? Your hip has to relax. It has to settle. Has to settle. All of that is in your footwork. You have to discover where it's in the form, but if you do it over time, when you start to step, when you turn, when you step, when you step, when you step, all of this comes into your footwork. So why a lot of people are not balanced when they step, too stiff, too rigid in the body, causes you to rush through the movement and then you're off balance. You can't be balanced when you're stiff because your body doesn't become sensitive. It becomes rigid and you start to fight your own movement. So the biggest conflict in that is the stiffness and rigidity in your joints, right? These are your joints. You have to soften your joints as the soft part of it. You have to firm up the direction of your forces and you tie it together with the direction of the movement. So these are, kind of theories and concepts that are inside the form. I mean, I could go through the sequence with you at this point, but the thing is, sequentially is very easy to teach because all you do is have to copy and memorize and then follow. But once you get the sequence, which many of the students here have, the Gung Kun, the Fook, actually you know many more forms than need be for this actually level of understanding because, it's just inventory. What you need to do is dial everything back, go through your forms from the beginning, forms to maybe up to Fook, the double image of tiger and crane, and then kind of tweak all those movements in between. So a lot of times, we go through these in class, even the water punch, we went through it last time. 1, 2, step, 3, step, 4, step, 5. How your body aligns with these movements. It will determine your alignment when you try to visualize those movements. So those are really fundamental ideas. This position. You have to find those positions not in the form, outside of the form. When you're in the black tiger claw, you have to find your position. Okay. So find the position. So that way, when you do the form, you know where you're going with the posture. A lot of these, are common. So those are, so these are, these are so these are framework that you have gone through, but maybe not necessarily understood throughout. So you have to go back, relook at your framework of movement, because after you develop the framework, then you realize that there's a common denominator in most of the framework that we have, and if you can define and allow your body to recognize those, then it gets much, much easier. You're not learning 10,000 different structures. You're learning a bunch of structures that actually fall into certain categories of movement. Defining those categories and letting your body recognize. So that's what, when you practice, your body houses all this information in the brain, and then it starts to cross-reference. When it cross-references in the brain, eventually it gets to a point where, oh, that's what that is, oh, that's what that is, and then it gets a lot simpler. So that's, sort of the concept in evolving into the next phase of your learning and evolving into the next level of execution. There is a bit of a learning curve in the beginning, because when you get to what we call the thresholds, and you get kind of stuck there, and you're stuck there because you don't know where your movements are going to evolve to. So you need these concepts and theories to take you there. And on that note, I'll see you Saturday, and we'll do a little bit more of the advanced Hung Gar, or advanced Kung Fu forms.